So really, as I mentioned, this meetup is about how to build engaging training programs. And really what we'll cover here is like 10 best practices and tips that I think would be good to use. Again, as I mentioned, after we'll cover those 10 best practices, Megan will go over on some new features that we have. Some of you might know them, some of you not. And at the end, we'll have a Q&A session. So let's start with the number one best practice that I want to speak about today. And this thing is about building trust and credibility. So some of you are working B2C and some of you are working B2B, but many people who are taking your training, they might not necessarily know you. Even if you're working inside of organization, I'm sure that the employees who are taking your training, they don't really know, they probably don't know much about you. And it's very important in a way to, I see a quest as a transformational process. And when we take someone on a transformational process, the person needs to trust you, and the person needs to feel that, okay, this is the person that I trust to take his advice, and also this is the person I believe who can really take me to my destination. So one of the best practices that I advise to use is on your first level or mission. It doesn't have to be on the first mission, but it's definitely good to have it on the first level. Introduce yourself. Tell them a bit about yourself. Build your authority, build your credibility. Tell them about why are you expert in this field, and get them excited to take this journey together with you. Because think about it right now, if I would tell you that I will bring you, let's say that you want to be more productive, and I will bring you the number one productivity expert in the world, and I would tell you why this is the number one expert for productivity in the world, I'm sure that your motivation to do the course after this will increase significantly. So obviously we are not the number one in the world in our expertise probably, but I'm sure that your resume is really good enough to really make people excited to go and follow you. So tip number one, really build your credibility at the beginning and really encourage people to join you on this journey. Now let's talk about tip number two. This is also talking about at the beginning of the training. It's very important to connect the learners with the training goal. We call the company myQuest, and in a way, Quest is like a journey with an epic goal at the end. And when the learner has the goal in their mind at the end of the course, they can vision the goal. This is a very critical element for motivation when people taking a training. And when you're building a mission to define their goals, you can also make it personal. You can tell them what they can achieve in this quest, and then you can invite them to define their own goals, or maybe visualize how these goals will affect their daily life or their daily work. For example, if you're doing sales training, so let's say maybe you can set up your goals. I want to close like 3x more sales, how it will affect your career. And you can do this kind of visioning exercise no matter what training do you deliver. And it's also very critical for the success of the training, that people will be connected to the goals. And when people finish the training at the end, you can go back to that goal. You can see, you can measure, like, did you reach your goal? Did you get what you expected? And sometimes also during the training, you can create milestones that people will get, that will get them closer to their goals. So this is the second tip that I have, is really connect learners with the training goal and with their own goal. Try to make it personalized. Tip number three. This is very important. Not many people are doing it, but I think it's very important, is to build a narrative for your program. Narrative is like a story. So when I'm designing a training, I really love to take people like on a journey, and in a way like creating a background story for the training. And try to think that in a way that, the quest is like a game or a movie and you're the author. And you're really taking people step by step toward, again, we're going back to tip number 2, toward the end goal. And you have the section of the mission intro, right? You have the video and below it you have the mission intro. Try to write these mission intros in a way that will connect missions together, that maybe you can create like a story for people, like where did they start, where do they make progress, and it's really like as creative as you can be. It will actually give people the feeling that they're not, doing tasks or something, that they're actually playing in some sort of role or a game or a movie, and this is something that can be very effective for creating motivation for people. Obviously, you need to make sure that the narrative of your program fits to your audience, right? So if you're doing training for elderly people at the age of 50, very serious people, you probably want to make the story quite serious. But if you're doing the quest for more like young people and you can use maybe more imagination. So obviously you want to fit the narrative to your audience, but this is something that can really upgrade your training program. Now, the fourth tip is actually something that I took from copywriting. 3 years ago, we used to work with a copywriter. He was quite well known in New York. Right now he's quite old, but he used to be one of the best copywriters, I think in the 70s and the 80s in New York. He sold lots of products. And one of the principles that he taught me about copywriting, he said that every word should pay rent. That means that when you're writing a copy, if you wrote something that doesn't, in his mind, it was about selling. You wrote copy to sell something. So if you write something that doesn't get you close, doesn't get the customer closer for buying your product, maybe you should remove it. And this principle applies also to training, right? You're designing right now a training, you're designing the missions, the levels. When you define a new mission, think about it. Is this mission is really essential for achieving the training goal? Is it something that really make progress for the user, allow the user to take progress? Now, if it doesn't, maybe you should remove it. And the same principle applies for when you actually design the mission itself. Right now you're writing the mission itself. Every word that you're writing there should be meaningful. If it's just a filler, remove it. People don't have lots of attention span today, and many times less is more. Try to focus on what's important, and remember that every word, every mission, every level should pay rent and should get people closer to their end goal. Let's talk about the next, actually I see this slide, okay, it's actually cut into 2 slides. Let's talk about the next best practice is to use multiple ways to deliver the same message. So I don't know if, probably some of you know that there are lots of theories about type of learners. One of the theory which actually was invalidated, and actually it's not a correct theory, and I'll speak about it in a second, actually divide learners into 4 different types. One type is a visual learner. These are people who prefer to see visual things. They want to see pictures, diagram, video in a way it's visual and audio together, but it's very easy for them to digest by watching. Some people are auditory learners. They love to listen. So if you have audio file, you have a video file, it will be much easier for them to listen to what you say, and it will be much easier for them to digest the content. The next type is kinesthetic learners. This is actually all about action-based learning. These are people who learn best by doing. Some people, you can explain them everything. They will just come to you and say, let me try it with my own hands. Let me try and see how it works. and many people learn the best in this way by just trying to experience with what they learned. And the last part of type of learners is people who are reading and writing learners. These people, it's easier for them to just take a text, read it, and digest it. Now, many years, and people believe that each one of us has its own, a key, his own strengths of how do we learn. Like, people believe that some people are kinesthetic and some people are more visual learners, and they made lots of research about it. But the latest researchers found that we don't really have a specific type of learning. We actually learn the best when we are presented with multiple learning opportunities. It means that if you will present people both with diagrams, but you will also present them with some audio about it, and maybe some words about it, and maybe some and give them some actions to practice it. Obviously, you don't have to have all of them, but if you mix multiple type of ways to deliver the message, this actually what really increase the probability of people to implement and learn what you deliver them. So what I would advise to you is when you design your mission, don't try to think that some people are this type of learners and some people are that type of learners, but it's important to understand that if you mix multiple types of ways to deliver the same message, it actually will help you to deliver it much more effectively. Now let's go to the next tip. Right now we're talking about community engagement. So in the Quest, you do have the community, and there are lots, the community is a very powerful tool, but like every powerful tool, we need to use it wisely. And there are some really good best practices on how to engage people within the community. Some of the great things that we have seen over the last years is one really good tactic is to ask people to introduce themselves in the community, and to use and really like this allow people to get to know each other. Obviously, if you're having a blended learning process, it's actually even better because people already know each other in the community. But if your process is fully online, then maybe you want people to introduce themselves, and make sure you respond to them, make sure that they get feedback for that. Another really cool tactic that we have seen is to share lessons and successes with people in the community from your conversation in the one-on-one coaching. So many times you're doing one-on-one coaching and someone asked a question and you give them an answer. And this is something that might be relevant to their entire community. If you can request the permission of this person to share it with everyone, this actually, the one-on-one coaching area is a really good place for you to come up with lessons and insight that are relevant for everyone. And if you will bring knowledge from the one-on-one conversation to the community, it will actually help you to engage everyone and will make the community is a very useful place for learning. Obviously, sharing personal experiences is always interesting, especially if we're going back to tip number one, after you have your authority and you created the trust, people want to hear from you, people want to know about your experiences. So please do it in the community. It will be very helpful. And the next tip for the community is creating rituals. So rituals it's a very effective way to bring people together. A ritual, it can be like every Monday, every person in the Quest shares something about, I don't know, let's say it's a leadership course. So every Monday, every manager share like what are their intention to do with the team for this week. I'm just making stuff up right now, but if you can think about stuff that people will do, and then you can also turn it as a habit in the Quest. But try to think about some rituals that are relevant for your programs. And once people are doing it, and obviously those rituals needs to make sense and it needs to be connected to your training, but if those rituals will be good and people will feel that they are contribute to them, it will actually really help you to bring people together and really increase the engagement in your training. Now, these are some of my tips on how to engage with the community. I also strongly encourage you to read a bit about it. There is lots of content out there about online community building. We put 2 links here for some interesting blog posts about it, but just Google it. You can find lots of data and information out there, and this can really take your quest to the next level. Tip number 7, provide personal support. Maybe it's a bit obvious, but one of the key elements to really keep people engaged is to make sure they are not alone in the quest. And some of you will provide one-on-one coaching, and it's great. Some of you, maybe you're selling your program too cheap to provide one-on-one coaching, so use the buddy system. It's really make a difference when someone is not alone in the quest and they have someone with them. Now, one of the best tools that you can use to, let's say that you're doing the one-on-one coaching or you're doing the buddy system, but you want to start creating these conversations, one of the best tools to do this is to use the follow-up questions. After the mission, you can ask people questions, then they can share it with the community or with you or with the accountability partner. And this is a key tool to really starting those conversations. And try to ask questions that encourage people to share their experiences, that encourage people to really I would say, start a conversation either with you or with the accountability partner. And the fact that we actually connected it to the training itself, it gives you a really good opportunity to make sure people are not alone in the quest. Obviously, you can also create live sessions if you're creating blended learning experience for people. Maybe you can have a session maybe every week, or maybe you can have like a meetup like we do right now every month with everyone. But if you can add some sort of personal element to your quest, it will really help you to improve it. And by the way, if you're doing, for example, a monthly meetup or webinar or something like this, you can use our meeting missions that Megan will cover it after that to really integrate it as part of the quest. Tip number 8, you probably heard a lot about it from us, is really, it's all about creating active learning. Really, the idea here is to make sure people take action. We want to make sure people not just learning by watching, but they're learning by doing. The fact that people take action really increase the retention of the knowledge in the quest. And there are multiple ways to make sure that people take action as part of the quest. First of all, in the missions, you can bring people, you can give people real life activities. Some activities people need to do in real life, and then they can share with you their experiences. Let's say that you do not have any kind of activity for a specific mission. You can add a short writing assignment to it. Just let people write something about it, ask them some question about it. This is also action-based learning. It's not just about watching the content, it's also about digest it and then have some output about it. You can also use quizzes and questionnaire for the same purpose. And you can also use the reflection question after the mission for the same purpose. So really always try to make sure someone is really taking action. And obviously when working with the coach or the buddy or the community, can really take it to the next level. For example, let's say that you're doing sales training. Right now we added a new feature to upload a video. So you can ask your trainees, please upload a video of your next sales call. And then they need to do the call, they need to upload the video, you can give them a feedback. It really takes the training to its next level. Tip number 9, create smart triggers and notification. So if you're looking at the science of habit creations, the first element of creating a new habit is the trigger. One of the reasons why phones are so addictive is that every time, there are a few elements for it, but it always starts with the trigger that the phone phone sends us. It can be like a push notification, you got a new message, something is happening on your phone, and the triggers always bring us back to the phone, and you can do the same for your training. So we do have the rule system in our platform where you can create a personalized trigger based on people progress and based on times. And I strongly encourage you to use this capability and create those triggers. For example, you can create messages for people, automatic messages after they complete a specific mission, and then you can give them, it might be a generic feedback, but it can be a feedback about that mission. For example, if I go back to this leadership course that I'm doing, now I had a meeting with my team, so send them a message 2 hours after they mark this mission as completed, ask them, hey, let's say, hey, Mike, how was the meeting today? I hope it was successful. Make sure that on your meeting tomorrow, do X, Y, and Z. And you can think about any type of messages that you send, but it's important that those messages will provide value for people and keep those messages personalized. And once you set this up one time, then it actually runs automatically for your program, and you're creating an engagement layer on top of your program that can really take it to the next level. Another important element in those messages is to add a call to action in those messages. So for example, many times is maybe you want to go back to the training, maybe you want to think about something. Try to think if in those triggers, do you have any type of call to action to add to those. Last tip, which is very important, is to create a post-training plan. So usually when people are taking online training or online course, you have your content, they learn something, and then people are on their own. But one of the biggest challenge of L&D people in organizations, and also people who are taking online courses, is how to connect the training with the actual results, and how do we make sure people are actually implement what they have learned. So I really encourage you, let's say that you have your training in your mind, it's maybe like a quest with 10 levels, add level 11 and level 12 about post-training. So they completed the training, what happens next? And try to focus on those levels on the implementation phase. Probably in this phase, you won't be next to them. They completed the training, but now they need to go back to their work, they need to go back to their life, and they need to implement it. And you can use the habits, the accountability partners, the community, the automatic messages that we mentioned before, to really make sure that you can keep engaging people even after they completed the training, and add them some missions that are relevant for the post-training, and make sure that in those missions, they actually implement what they have learned. It's super important. And one more thing that you can do, you can go back to tip number 1, which was about defining your own personal goal. And then you can say, when people complete the training, so, okay, now maybe in some training they will actually reach their goal. Maybe in some training, now they're actually starting the journey to reach their goal. So really try to maybe send them a message like 30 days after they complete the training, like, how close are you to the goal? Share it with me, share it with the community, and really try to engage people and try to connect the training with the goal, the personal goals that people defined. So these are the 10 tips or best practices that I have to create effective learning. Obviously, we'll send everyone the presentation after the call. Before we move on to the next section about features, I want to give you the opportunity to ask questions. There was lots of, I covered a lot of elements here. Actually, it's a bit pity that we did not do a slide that actually summarized all the points, so you can actually, let me go over it real quick. So build trust and credibility, connect learners with training goal, build narrative to your program, every mission should pay its rent, use multiple ways to deliver the same message, engage the community wisely, provide personal support, create active learning, and create smart triggers and notification. And the last one, create a post-training plan. So if If any one of you has any question about one of these principles, please let me know and I'll be happy to address those questions.